Live streaming. We're ready.
Happy New Year, everybody.
First Feed Your Brand and coaching call of 2023. Exciting.
That's scary. 2023 already.
I know, it really is scary. And I've been really good about it, writing it all year. 4 days.
Oh yeah, all year.
All year. Yeah, exactly. There's something every year when I go to do the end of the year, like financial journal entries and other things, I always screw it up because I'll type like 12/31, but it'll automatically put it into 2023 because it autofills and I won't notice it. And I'll be like, why didn't it work? That's why. Anyway. Okay. Well, I love New Year. It's my favorite time of year. I love thinking about the past and the future. So that's what we're going to cover today. Shall we just get started on the episode, Tom?
Let's do it. Sorry.
Are you going to start it or am I?
I'll start it and throw to you.
Sounds good.
Thank you. I just had something I had to clear out that was distracting me here. So, okay. Let's see. Hold on. I need the title before I do this.
We're doing Feed Your Brand. Well, no, I think the title is wrong in the calendar. Nobody updated it.
No, it's there. The rule of three. It's there.
That is the temporary. Cody was supposed to get it from the team to update it, and I don't know.
Well,
can you throw it in the chat, Cody?
I know he had the description that is updated. I'm sure he has it. Here we go. Why do you use the rule of three as a measure of podcast marketing ROI? I like it. Okay. I'm not going to recite that whole thing. I'm just going to talk about the rule of three. All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to Feed Your Brand. I'm Tom Hazzard along with my co-host, Tracy. Today, we're going to talk about the rule of three, according to Tom and Tracy, for
it's our rule of three.
It's our rule of three for assessing, how to measure marketing ROI in particular about your podcast. So, Tracy, why don't you take it from there? Because I know this is really your brainchild.
Yeah. So look, periodically throughout a year, I will check our ROI on things. Like sometimes when we start something brand new, I usually give it a 6 months and then I check the return on investment. And I have a preconceived notion of where I think the value is going to lie. What I don't do when I start something brand new, when I don't have an experience with it, when it's not already something we've done, like when we first started podcasting is a really great example. 6 months in, I set a return on investment review for myself, an internal review to see where things are. And I'm using a premise, as I said, so a hypothesis of where I think the value is going to lie. It might not be that. So I do have to do some investigation to determine what that return on investment was over the last 6 months, because I might be wrong. And just because I said, you know what, I want my podcast to have 10,000 listeners in 6 months, and it doesn't achieve that, doesn't mean I should quit. Because my hypothesis might have been wrong about where the value lied, right? So we joke about throwing the baby out with the bathwater is this common term, right? Like very often people say, this is what I want from podcasting, or this is what I want from my marketing. And when it doesn't happen, they just quit.
They don't realize, even though that one thing that they wanted may not be what they got, there may still be tremendous value in what they're doing. They just didn't realize that value was going to present itself in a different way. Isn't that right?
Right. So there are these people who have a clear outcome in mind, and then when it doesn't achieve the outcome, they're done. They're decision makers. They just go, cross, I'm done. I'm not doing this. It's a waste of my time. I didn't get what I wanted from it. When they throw that out, sometimes they throw out something that could be the key to getting them what they really wanted. It just isn't doing it in the path they imagined or in as directly as they imagined. And that's why I have my rule of three. And it's specifically related to return on investment for something new or something that is difficult to measure, like marketing. Because sometimes marketing branding, marketing, like all of those things, sometimes it's not always a clear cut of they clicked the link and bought, right? Like not everything comes from that. That's maybe 1% of it. And it's the same thing with listeners, right? Not everything is clearly, if I have a podcast listener, I sell a product, right? Or I sell a service. It doesn't necessarily not a straight line. That doesn't mean that my podcast listeners aren't buying. It's just not a clear-cut link because I can't clearly identify that listener to this purchase, right? So that's why we look at this. So my rule of 3 is simply this. There needs to be one tangible return on investment, something I can measure. That's why I call it tangible. It doesn't necessarily have to be what I thought I should measure, but it does have to be something that is measurable. And it could be just growth measurement over time. It doesn't have to be a specific number that I hit, but it has to be something that I can measure over time. I could look at from that point forward on maybe a monthly basis or every 90 days, whatever it is, I will determine that metric, but it has to be measurable. One thing. And 2 things that I consider to be personally fulfilling, but not necessarily tangible, the intangible. So I look at it from that perspective because at the end of the day, if doing Facebook Lives or doing a podcast or whatever it is in marketing that I'm doing, it's an effort and it's costly, it's time consuming, like all of those things will happen. So if there's not something personally fulfilling for it, if it doesn't fill a need for me, I won't stick with it. And that's why I measure those other 2 things. And hopefully they do have some outcome measurement at the end of the day. So for me, networking is a huge fulfilling thing. I love people. I'm an extrovert. I love to be around people. I love to interview them. I love to connect with them. And over the last few years, obviously, I'm not doing that live and in person as much. So getting it through my podcast has been personally important to me. And the fact that I've created better relationships each year as I've gone through my podcast and I'm refining the right type of people that I want to connect with. And all of that is occurring into this great ecosystem of network that I'm building through that says that this is not only intangible and personally fulfilling, but it's now measurable. And so I've turned it into something tangible. How many of my guests from last year have become clients and or partners? It's high compared year over year, right?
And I think this is why it's so important. And I know you talk about it as one tangible and maybe 2 intangible, and that's one way to look at it. The way I sort of see this may happen for most people, and what I think has happened for us time and time again with different podcasts and different businesses we've had even before, Podetize, is that it may be, they may all be tangible, but just may not have been the ones you were expecting. You couldn't have predicted it, right? And maybe that's why you're calling it intangible, but I think that it could be a tangible, measurable result, just not the one you expected.
Right. Or I'm going to say it may be less direct, right? So in other words, that it doesn't, I got in the beginning when we first got our speaking, I got a lot of speaking engagements from our podcast, right?
Right.
And so speaking engagements are not a direct path. So I didn't get a listener who bought from us. I got a speaking engagement where I might get someone in the audience who then buys from us, right? So it's a little less direct. And that's why it's harder to have a more direct measurement to it. But it doesn't mean I can't measure the number of speaking engagements I got from that. So you're right. It doesn't mean there's not something measurable. But at the end of the day, those speaking engagements are very personally fulfilling, and the results from them build our business. So those things happen, right? I got my ink column from my podcast.
And you definitely didn't see that coming.
I didn't see that coming at all. I couldn't have predicted that was going to be something but then I wrote 400 articles from Ink Magazine. But I would say that I didn't get a single click-through sale that I can attribute to Ink Magazine. But did Ink Magazine make it easier to close clients? Absolutely. Did it get me speaking engagements that closed clients? Absolutely. right? Today, it still gets me people who will connect on me on LinkedIn because it says in columnist in my profile title. That's it. Like, it has huge indirect benefits, but it's not something that I could have set out and said, that's my goal for doing a podcast, right?
Right. And, this reminds me of something which is an often misunderstood part of podcasts. It's a little bit related. This isn't directly what you're talking about, but I do think it's related and it's worth mentioning, because I was just speaking with a new podcaster about this morning before we're, recording this, which is that they were not wanting to have what they thought were some of their better guests on the very first few episodes, because they thought, well, I don't have an audience yet. They don't want to be on my first few episodes because they want to know that I have a big audience. And I'm like, no. You're thinking about this in the wrong way. Your early opportunities, you don't undersell that. Don't, hide the fact that, or try to apologize for the fact that you don't have an audience yet. Your guests who are going to be on anywhere in your first 10, 12 episodes or more, that's a unique opportunity for them. And I say, you want to sell that as they can be one of your premier guests on your show, be in one of your premier episodes, because historically what happens, even when you're 50, 100 episodes down the road, people are going to listen to your latest episode or two, decide if they like it, and they almost always go back and listen to the early episodes, at least the first 10 or 12. And then they may skip ahead. So you have some in there that maybe not everybody will listen to, but statistically, when we look at the download stats of every show, the earliest episodes have more downloads per episode than any other.
That's right. It always happens. There's always a spike in somewhere in between. You might get a great guest and you get a spike in there. But the first 10 episodes typically have the highest listener base out of all shows.
And so to me, that is one way that I think a lot of people, they start to assess, they say, oh, I want to look at how many downloads my show is getting, how many people are listening to my episodes or downloading them, at least, if you're not able to assess playthrough. And they think, in that first month, second month, oh, my early episodes, they're not setting the world on fire. I'm, and in the very beginning, you may feel that way, but you've got to give it time and look at it from a different perspective down the road a couple months. And then eventually you'll see this happens with just about every show, as long as you stick with it. I mean, shows that pod fade after, don't even get to 20 episodes, then you really can't evaluate that for very much. But you stick with it past 25 episodes, you get to 50, and beyond, you're going to see this. This is almost universally true.
Right. Well, so here's the thing. So when we look at return on investment for podcasting specifically, Tom and I have some key areas that we know are pretty common for most people to achieve, right? So there are what we call authority values, authority return on investments. And, like me getting more speaking engagements, those are less direct, but authority return on investments. And absolutely growing your website is an authority. So if you're getting more keywords, you're getting more organic traffic, you're getting all of those, that's an authority builder, what we would call domain authority or web authority, right? Online authority. You're getting that. That matters. You're not getting it if you're not doing the blog side of it. I'm just going to be really clear. Just because you're podcasting doesn't give you website authority. It doesn't happen. But if you're doing all of it, you are getting it there. That's something that you want to watch. You want to keep it. That's why we put that stat into our Podetize ecosystem, was because we wanted people to be able to watch the value that they were creating, because it wasn't always so front of mind for podcasters, right? We think listeners as the number one metric. And I can say to you is that listeners is not the number one metric across it. I've never seen a show where having more listeners really got them more. Having the right listeners gets them more every single time. So more just doesn't make more, right? And that is a huge difference. I see shows with 50 listeners do better than 50,000 listeners.
Really depends on what your
time.
Goals are for your marketing, which your podcast is one piece of. Now, certainly, 50 listeners may not be, viewed as success by some people, but 500,000 listeners may also not be success for some people. It just depends. Now, don't get me wrong, everyone listening and watching this. Larger number of listeners is usually the goal for most podcasters, no question. And there are lots of good things that come from that. All we're saying is, for most people that are podcasting in service to their business or to market and grow their brand, the listeners is only one piece of the puzzle, and usually is less beneficial from a tangible perspective than the web traffic that results from your podcast if you do it correctly. That web traffic actually leads to more listeners, but you get the web traffic first in most cases, right?
Yeah. Web traffic grows, then listener base grows. Like that's how it typically goes, because somebody has to find out about your show, and the listening apps stink at it. They're really
bad search engines. And as much as we optimize every new show we launch for that so that it comes up in as many searches, there's always going to be more people searching on Google first. And it's a much, much better search engine that will have people find your podcast than even Apple Podcasts or Spotify or any of the listening apps are.
Right.
That's really unfortunate in this industry.
It really is.
Could be better.
It needs to get better.
Yeah.
So authority is the number one measurement that I say most people will get first. Well, they get more, but that's the first thing that you'll see grow if you're doing it right. If you've got a good show, if you're right in your niche, if your brand is on message with the audience that you're trying to seek, if you get that right, the authority growth will happen first. That's the easiest return on investment. There's lots of measurements you can take against that. Like we said, you can measure web traffic, you can measure speaking events, you can measure things that are related to that authority growth. And you should see listener growth at a consistent pace. Follow up at some point after 25 episodes. It will be inconsistent prior to 25 episodes, but beyond 25 episodes, you should see some growth trajectory that you can measure. And I don't even want to go into why it's at 25 episodes. I think we did a whole podcast episode on that at some point in the Speed Your Brand. We talked about the magic number of 25 episodes. If we haven't, we're going to do it. So if for some reason we haven't covered it.
I'm sure we've talked about it, maybe
I'm pretty sure
could be covered again, but no, it is critical. The point is, you can't just dip your toe in the water of podcasting and expect to measure success. You've got to commit to doing this for a period of time, because the benefits build on each other.
Yeah.
And not only in listenership and audience growth, but in all the other benefits that come from this content marketing that you're doing, which is really what it is.
Right. So authority happens first. Then the second thing that happens is in a business growth side of things. So are my leads more qualified? Are my leads closing faster? Like, these are the things that will happen before you say more leads, right? Like, so everybody wants more leads and they're trying to put that first in the whole ecosystem, but you haven't earned the right yet. You haven't gotten through the trust factors. You haven't built the authority. You haven't gotten to the stage where more leads actually lead to more anyway. So you're not there yet. So we look at that conversion rate type things, like qualifications of the leads. Are they more qualified? And are they converting faster into a sale? So do I have less conversations with them? Those are the second set that we have. Then we see more. Like, that's the third thing. So sometimes it takes a year and a half before we're measuring them more. And that's why I like to look at them in 6 months chunks or 1 year chunks, whatever it is, depending on the pace of which you're podcasting. For us, when we started podcasting and we were podcasting 5 days a week, we could have an earlier review of these things and have them quarterly. And that's what we did. But when you're really only doing one a week or anything like that, you really can't do a review more than every 6 months, because there's not enough of a a shift in authority, a shift in trust, a shift in what's happening with your listener base until you hit 25 episodes, 50 episodes, 100 episodes. Like you've got to hit those metrics.
It just takes a little longer to move the needle. And it is a marathon, folks, not a sprint. What you're saying, Tracy, what you said there was so true. 25 episodes, 50 episodes, whatever period of time that's over really doesn't matter as much. But those are good benchmarks for a volume of content to move the needle in measurable, tangible ways so that you can evaluate.
Yeah. And look here, I look at this not just in my podcast, but we do this review every 6 months on social media as well. So our social media marketing is that. And I measure something new, different than I measure something that we've been doing and established for a while. So if I'm brand new to TikTok, my measurements for TikTok have a lot more of those two intangible items. Like, am I having fun doing this? And is it having some kind of indirect benefit? Like I'm getting some new blood or the different types of people into our funnel that we can experience, like have conversations with, start to learn how to message to them, find out if they're right or wrong. Right? That might be an intangible type. It's measurable, but it may not be measurable from the moment that I discover that it's my thing. Right? And so TikTok is one thing. Now, Twitter is another. We quit Twitter from a active standpoint 3 years ago. And it's the happiest place I've ever been. Like not having to actively post on Twitter made me so happy. I never go into it. I never respond to anything. I don't have to, but it took us 2 years to discover that our audience wasn't there. It seemed like it was, because we had a lot more of
there was activity going on. But when you evaluated that activity, was it producing a tangible benefit for us? And our determination was no. And I think this is very important, Tracy. Everybody needs to determine for themselves. And that's why there are tangible and intangible things to measure here and to
direct
evaluate.
Or indirect. You can think of them that way.
Assess your ROI. And I'm going to just give you a couple examples because all these have come up in the last week with customers we have. For some of them, the tangibles and the benefits are their podcast is a content marketing machine for their website. Their keyword rankings have grown steadily. And I have one that I was just reviewing this morning, climbed over 10,000 keyword rankings on their website. Some of these keyword rankings, any entrepreneur, business owner would kill for. It all comes from their podcast content. There's no other content on the website that's being created. And that's leading to over 20,000 unique visitors to the website every month. So that's success for one type of individual. Another one has a Facebook group that is the key to their lead generation and success. 14,000 people in this group and growing by 200 members per week. And so that's another way that they're measuring success from all the content they're creating. And then another, other people have like LinkedIn, right? And they're getting more and more connections there. And LinkedIn is where they're wanting to do the most engagement. And their content they're putting out through their podcast is going out on LinkedIn and leading to more people connecting with them. So, I mean, everybody has a different way of measuring it. And all we're suggesting is you keep an open mind, keep your eyes open, and have some goals, have some things you want to look at and measure, but be looking at these other things and decide, before you assess, hey, the podcast is working for me or it's really not working for me. Maybe I should, put a bullet in this thing and be done with it. Right. Well, before you do that, just make sure you're looking at all of the tangent measurements and benefits that you may not realize that you're getting.
And that's why I assign a couple of personal ones, because I have to say that I personally really dislike doing lives. So I personally dislike, I love being here for all of you, like doing this live and live streaming it, like that's no problem. But this idea that I got to pop onto TikTok and do a 30-second live, I cringe at it. So am I going to go into that and am I going to be consistent about it? It's not going to work for me. So now I have to come up with a model that can. because it's just not going to happen. It's just not going to stay consistent. So understanding those as well, really understanding what's personally driving you it's like, oh, I have to create content for my website. Like I hear that from people.
Oh,
I got to write an article. No,
absolutely.
you don't. You don't.
Oh my gosh. And so many people, they'll come to us, even if they don't have a podcast yet. I have all these videos I've been doing, all these live streams, I have all this video content, and it's still relevant today. Great. Those should all be podcast episodes and should be blogs on your website. Done the right way, you can repurpose all of them. And you don't necessarily have to do more work.
Yeah. And this is the thing, is like, look, if this isn't working for you personally, it's not going to work out in the end. And then you will lose your direct tangible benefit. So figure that out. And that's why measuring that early on and then coming up with that and maybe diving deeper into that. So if my network matters to me, which I told you it does, then I need to dive deeper and maybe develop some greater criteria moving forward into the next 6 months to get even better people on my show. Right? To dive that in and dial it in and refine it and make it even better for me. Right? So when I figure out what's working for me, I need to double down on that and try that for the next 6 months and see if I can make that even better for me. Because that's going to keep me going. That is going to then keep my tangible benefit moving for me and keep it happening. And I'm not going to lose momentum and I'm not going to lose interest, right? So that's why I tie them together. And the reality is that, look, we get so busy. And that's why I say two personal benefits, so my second one, I will tell you. So my first one is building the network. I love that. It's why I won't give up the binge factor. But I love getting to have time with Tom and getting to have some mind share about our ideas on the marketplace. And this helps us refine our advice to our clients and do all of that. So if I don't get to have the opportunity to have these conversations with Tom, then it's not going to happen because we don't have time outside of making time during this part of the week to do that. So us building this episode for you, us building the coaching call for you, in preparing for that, that's our time to get our mind share in the same place for the business. And so it's actually critical to the growth of the business, but it's also something that is one of my favorite things to do, to have mind share with Tom. Like this is what we do really well together.
Well,
and
thanks
so
very much,
we carve
Tracy.
it out.
Yeah, it is one of the things that we do really well together. And that's why we not only been married as long as we have, but we've been working together for so many years and we haven't killed each other yet. It's because we actually both feed off of this sort of mind share in figuring out what works and, innovating on that to help other people benefit from it too. I think even as what was it, New Year's Day observed Monday this year, early in January, we spent half the day talking about these sorts of things and brainstorming because it was a day when there wasn't a lot of work going on, not a lot of meetings, right?
Right. And that's so rare in our normal week that we've had to carve out the time for that. And so that's why, look, I can say not enough of our clients show up on these calls. If we measured it in how many people showed up on the calls, if we used that, we would never have a coaching call. But there are 3 reasons we keep the coaching call. If we look at the return on investment, right? The clients that we have that show up on this call succeed more and refer more people than the rest of our client base. So from that, it's like getting to help the early adopters, getting to help the fast movers, getting to help the high referrers, right? And so making that happen is actually it has a bottom line benefit for us. So even though it's small, they're the ones that do the most for us. But secondly, yeah, and some of them are our longest podcasters too, right? Like Scott Carson, who I can see showing up,
yeah,
right? Exactly. So they've been podcasting with us the longest too, right? So they stick around, longevity. Number 2, it's actually a great part of the sales process. When we say we have live calls and live assistant, even though they don't show up to it, it is actually a driver for them to choose us as a hosting company over another one that doesn't even have a phone number, right? It's a
That's
reason.
true.
Live
And in
help.
fact, we, just for those of you listening to the podcast and you're not hearing this live because you haven't been invited to be on it live because you're not a customer yet, right? Even if you just host with us, you don't have to do the, the more costly done for you production. Just host on Podetize. You get to be a part of these calls live and get it first, right? But the other reason, and you're probably going to mention it, and I'm sorry if I'm derailing your thoughts here, is that we do this because we're, for a portion of our weekly client coaching call, we're recording an episode of our podcast, right?
And filling our blog. And building our domain authority, and our growth rate is so significantly high that there's no reason for us to stop that. But if we had to set time to sit down and write a blog, it would never happen. Or if we hired somebody to write it for us and it wasn't in our viewpoint and in our voice, it wouldn't also be expressing and helping to close people faster through the sales process, because everything about how we approach our business, everything about how we approach podcasting, everything about how we assist you is right there on our website, actually. So anyone could consume that and learn it. Now they got to go the long way. They got to read it all or listen to it all. Well, like it's a lot more work, but it's
we also
there
have
for
a
them.
Really good text search database function among all that content. So if there was something specific you're looking for, you don't have to go hunt through a zillion blogs. You actually just click into one of them and there's a nice search bar, and it's really well done. So you can look for, hey, have they recorded something about this? Have they talked about that? You'll find it.
Yeah, absolutely. So that piece of it is not an intangible. There's a measurement on that. But the fact that we're constantly filling that is the intangible part, right? It's that doing it consistently and constantly is rewarded by the digital system, the digital authority system. So us making sure that happens is critical. But too often when a company gets to the size that we are, the people who have the viewpoint, the people who have the brand, the people who have the messaging, the people who have the knowledge aren't participating in the process anymore, and it drops off a cliff. But the mere fact that Tom and I are participating in the process and we're forming new collaborative ideas, our intangible that we get from that is really keeping us so that we are serving our clients today, not with stuff that we learned yesterday. So that's why we have a rule of three and how we review everything that we do. And this at the beginning of a year is exactly when we really do rethink everything that we do. And we make some decisions because we cannot do it all. We cannot do every single social media platform at 100%. It's not possible. So we need to make sure that we are deciding where our time is being best spent and where it should be best spent moving forward. And as we refine this down, we share this with all of our clients. We tell them what we've chosen to do, changes we've made. I have a meeting later today with our social media team, and we're going to look at measurements. We're doing something right on Instagram. And I almost gave up on it last year. And my team talked me into the intangible, to the fact that something was going on. And now we're seeing some engagement that we've never seen before. We're going to analyze that. We're going to figure out what it is so we can share it with the community and let you know what we're doing right finally on Instagram. And it might not be us at all. It might be something that shifted in Instagram that is now working for us. So that's also something to remember, that just because you cut it out and gave up on something doesn't mean that you might not want to go back and do an experiment again, right? I'm about to go back and do an experiment with Twitter Spaces, not with Twitter, with Twitter Spaces, because it fits into our live stream model that we're going to be adopting coming forward. So I'm actually giving Twitter a chance again. These things I think about as we talk about, because I always like to do something that when I evaluate it and say what's working and what's not, when I cut something out, I add something in that's an experiment.
Well, we have to keep experimenting and testing and figuring out what's working, because it does change. Nothing lasts forever. And we've seen other businesses, I guess I'm thinking in my mind, but I think you can even think of your podcast as a mini business. At least it is a part of most of people's businesses. But we've seen businesses fail who really didn't innovate fast enough, didn't figure out what that next thing was, and they got complacent on one thing that was working, usually with social media. I'm thinking of one company in particular with Facebook that was making money hand over fist for a while until Zuckerberg got hauled into Congress to testify, and all of a sudden that Facebook paywall came down the way it was, back 4 years ago or 5 years ago, and their revenue stream got shut off overnight. So it obviously a bit of an extreme example, and talking about business revenue versus, marketing success with your podcast. But I think the same things can apply here, is that not everything's going to keep working. Algorithms shift. I mean, last year we were getting big into LinkedIn newsletters, and I still see those working. I think people are getting a lot of value out of LinkedIn newsletters. That if you have a big LinkedIn following, that's one way you can use your podcast content to serve people and be found by new listeners, right? But what is it going to be this year? Is Twitter Spaces it? I'm interested to see.
Yeah. And I have to say that, like, if I looking at it from and I haven't, like I said, this afternoon, we'll be diving into the numbers on this, but I'm actually seeing a decline in LinkedIn for the first time in 10 years.
Wow.
And in quality results. And I believe it is all due to the fact that it's been inundated by a bunch of companies overselling LinkedIn services and too much of the bots coming into the chat. And now it's not working as much.
And we may actually at our company be seeing some indicators of that. Actually, I've gotten some in the last 48 hours, in fact, with some things we're doing in LinkedIn. We've had some indicators that things are shifting a little.
Yep, exactly. So this is the case. Like, we are always having to be on this and understand it. And if you're not measuring it, if you're not reviewing it, you're not going to be in a place where you can decide, is this worth my time, my money, my energy? And that's really the whole point of our rule of 3 and marketing ROI.
I love it, Tracy. Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing it's really your vision. I mean, I'm jumping on the bandwagon, and I really enjoy all of, working with you and that mind share and pushing the edge of our envelope. So thank you for that. But yeah, definitely this topic, the rule of 3, you had this planned out. I'm like, yeah, okay, which rule of 3 are we talking about today? So we've sort of, and then once you told me, like, oh yeah, sure, boom, let's do it. But I'm glad we can share that with everyone. Hopefully you all got some value out of it. And if you're new to the podcast, this is the type of thing we do every episode.
And we're going to be back this month and going forward with some really cool and interesting topics. We're trying to keep the podcast and this area into some of the more cool advanced things. We're going to be talking about chat GPT and a bunch of other things coming up, things that you might be curious about, things that are in the marketing side of podcasting. We definitely found that those were working over last year, and we're going to be diving deep into some of those. And then every so often we'll be throwing in some 101s and some things that you might need to get back to basics on, because you've lost that in the process. So we're definitely going to hit on those too. So be looking for some cool new episodes coming forward.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll be back next time with another hopefully engaging and valuable episode for you. This has been Tom and Tracy on Feed Your Brand.
Hopefully, we're going to be.
Well, yeah, okay, that's fine.
That's right, Tracy. That's right.
We're gonna be.
You can cut me off the end and redo it if you want.
No, that's fine.
So a lot of interesting stuff, some comments here from the live group in the webinar. And Rosie makes a really good point that she gets so many messages to sell her stuff on LinkedIn, it bogs down the real messages. And that
this is my favorite subject, to be honest with you. And this is something that I track, Rosie. So like this is something that I consider as we're evaluating what's going on a social media platform, especially, but even in podcasting and in other places. So one of my favorite scenes from a movie is Ready Player One. If you haven't seen it, I've mentioned it here on the show before.
One of my favorite movies, personally.
Tom loves it. And I read the book and stuff like that. But Ready Player One has this scene where the evil character who's, I forgot his name.
Sorrento.
Sorrento.
He's the leader of just think of him as the evil empire.
Yeah, the
whatever,
company.
you know.
Anyway, he is talking about how they're going to, they figured out how to sell 80% of your visual space in the VR
Basically,
world.
how to
Right?
populate your visual field with a maximum of 80% of advertising messages
Right.
before
Inducing seizure. And I think that
Which is
that's
hilarious.
where, so I've been watching and following some articles about Amazon. And Amazon has year over year about 30% more advertisements on their sales process pages.
So they've been increasing it.
They've been increasing it because they make their dollars off of ad dollars. They make the majority of the money as a company, they make off of advertisement, not off of Prime memberships, not off of music, not off of videos, but off of the advertisement model on their shopping platform.
Mhm.
So they've figured out we can sell even more and we can put more in. Okay. But it has started to degrade the shopping process. And so that's what's happening exactly on LinkedIn, Rosie, is what you're seeing is that now that my LinkedIn messages are so inundated, I don't check them as frequently. So now LinkedIn is started at this tipping point because they're allowing this to happen. And it is making them money because in order to do it, more people have bought LinkedIn Navigator, which makes them more money. They buy higher packages of premium membership to LinkedIn, right? Because in order to use your chat bots, that's what you do.
You have to use, some of these other
Right?
tools.
So they're making more consistent recurring revenue, which is being rewarded by the investment community and by their revenue and dollars that they're making on a recurring basis, right? Which is highly valued. So they're making more money over there. So they're looking the other way. But what's now happening is time on platforms dropping. They hit a tipping point in time on platform because I'm just sick of the noise and I don't pay. And so I used to be a consistent LinkedIn user, like very, very consistent. Twice a day, I checked my LinkedIn. I now am checking twice a week. It's too noisy.
Well, and so this becomes, it's interesting because I think we all are experiencing, there are, as users, what are we doing on these platforms differently to, insulate ourselves from the noise? And that's what Rosie was talking about. She gets so many messages selling stuff. The real messages, the people she probably wants to talk to, are getting lost in the noise. But then as business owners who are trying to reach more of our ideal target market to, sell to them, to serve them, whatever it is we're trying to do in business, how do we get our messages to get through to the right people and make a difference so that we can help them? And that's the constant trick, right?
Right. And it's going down everywhere. So like, you're not alone in seeing that. It's going down everywhere. The marketing return on investment from Facebook is down. The marketing return on investment from running ads on Amazon is actually down, which is why you have to run more ads to make that happen. Like just all of the return on investments on all of those things, except for two things that are consistently working. Google search traffic, organic Google search traffic, not just paid. Both work, but not just paid, but organic. And podcasting or video casting, you can call it that too. Those two things are the only things that have increased in value year over year.
Well, it's because
everything else has slightly declined.
The
or
organic,
declined greatly.
until people stop searching in Google and go into Google first to meet their needs, your website content is going to continue to be beneficial. So let me expand on part of what I said in the episode. I mean, and feel free, any other questions, folks. And I'm going to get back to answer your question. In fact, this is going to relate to that. But what I want to share is I didn't want to out our customer. He probably wouldn't have minded, but in the published podcast. But the website I was just looking at this morning because had some prospect meetings and it was a good example. is Consulting Success Podcast. Michael Zapersky, his website is consultingsuccess.com. This website has become a keyword machine for ranking on amazing keywords like business consulting. Like, I mean, I don't even all the different keyword phrases. He ranks on the first
really great
first
keywords.
organic spot on the first page of Google, have gone up and up and up. And he's now gotten over 10,000 keyword rankings, and he wasn't there 6 months ago. He was at like 6. His website has reached a tipping point, and the only new content being created are the podcast related blogs. So he's a real good example of the marathon, and he does 1 episode a week. It's not like he's doing 3 episodes a week, 5 episodes a week.
But he's not dialing it in. And I want to be really clear, because there are a lot of podcaster models out there that other companies, look, we have other companies that use our system to publish podcasts, use Podetize, use the hosting platform, but they set up the shows. Sure. And he's not phoning it in. It's not this model of his guest comes in and they don't talk about the topic of what he needs to cover. He covers his topic in a great way. That's what's working for him. He's not letting the guest define this weird topic that takes you off tangent from his core direction.
What his goals
are. He controls it. And that's a big difference there. So not only is his content on target for what he wants to grow in his business and his site, but the guests that he has on his show, the topics that he covers, like they're all aligned with the right direction.
And aligned with what he's doing in business and selling in business. So there's a direct benefit for that traffic coming to his website for those keyword phrases.
That took refinement. That's why it took time.
It's taken years. So here's one thing, because Ann asked the question, and then we'll get to some of the more recent questions, is that if we podcast weekly and do social media posts, how long do we see new SEO rankings on the internet? Okay, well, first of all, your social media posts have absolutely zero to do with your SEO rankings on your website. That is putting posts out on social is great. You should use all of the materials we're creating for every episode to raise awareness of your show on social, to get people to try to go to your website, but they're going to your website because they saw a social post, not because they searched on Google. So those are two completely different things.
Search engine optimization, SEO, is a Google measurement. It's
correct.
A measurement of you being typed into the search engine, right? Or your topic being typed into the search engine.
And Google has already associated a post on your website with keyword phrases people are searching on. Your post comes up in the list of results. They click, and then they're on your website, and they learn about that episode. They learn you have a show. They try it right there. They learn whatever else you're offering on your website. But in terms of keyword ranking, so I'm going to give you 2 examples. Michael Zapersky, marathon long game, 1 episode a week. He's about episode 270. So he's been doing this for more than 5 years.
And he's been with us the majority of that.
He's been with us 4.5 years. Yeah, that's true. He wasn't always hosted with us. He was on Libsyn first. He came to host with us about 18 months or 2 years ago, because he's using our ad insertion system to convert listeners to customers on his, of his programs. So that, but it's been a long game. Getting to that volume of content is where we see, you get over 10,000 keyword rankings somewhere over 200 episodes. You could do those 200 episodes in a year and a half if you're doing 3 episodes a week, which another customer who achieved the same kind of success did, Dr. Diane Hamilton, had 200 episodes before she found us. We converted 50 episodes a month for 4 months, and she went from 250 keyword rankings to more than 10,000 over that 4-month period. But she didn't publish new 200 episodes in 4 months, but she already had them. And so her website gained the same kind of rankings, and then and then traffic as a result. So you can do it in a shorter period of time. It's all about the volume of content you publish. in publishing episodes more frequently. Or, look, I'm not saying you're not going to get value after 25 episodes. You are 25 episodes, 50 episodes. You'll rank on hundreds and then a couple thousand of keyword rankings, but this is all proportional to the volume of episodes you publish. Okay.
Right. And it has, so when we're saying convert episodes, it means you have a video or a podcast and you haven't made it a blog yet.
Correct.
Okay. If you're our client, you've already got the blogs. Like you're already doing it. You just need to know to keep them. And that's another story that happened in the last week. So Tom tells me that one of our clients, their company got bought out and their show got bought out. And the new company that bought them decided that they could handle the podcast all by themselves and that they didn't think the blog was worth it. And they got rid of the blog. So they had
paid us for a couple of years to do not only every new episode, and they were publishing 5 a week. I mean, they were a high volume customer, publishing 5 a week new episodes. And then we converted, I think we were doing like 50 episodes a month, like 25 or 30 past episodes to catch up because they had hundreds and hundreds of episodes published and doing their new daily episodes going forward. That's what we were doing.
And the team even told me, my team told me the other day that they got bought out and said, we don't want to do this. We're going to handle this all ourselves.
The new owners said, not invented here. We're not going to do it anymore.
But they paid good money for this company, including their podcast, which they did keep going.
That was a huge part of the valuation.
It's part of the valuation. So they paid good money for it. In 30 days, they delisted all of the blogs. They told our team to not even finish the 10 that we still were working on because we still had 10 in their package. And they were like, we don't care. We'll just walk away from the money. We don't care. Don't do them. We're not going to use them. So don't do them. In 30 days, they lost all the value.
They lost a huge amount. What were the numbers? It dropped like 80% or something.
80%, yeah.
Actually, I still have it up here. It literally dropped from June to December. They went to 15-20% of the keyword rankings, and the traffic has dropped considerably as a result. The organic traffic went from in July 2022 to November, it's about 8% of what the traffic was. So I hope they have some other purposes and other things they're doing in business, getting value out of buying that company and that podcast. But they have managed to really, in my opinion, make a very tragic decision to not capitalize on all that equity that existed in the website in keyword rankings
that they paid for when they bought them out. That's the worst part about it. Yeah. But they won't see the results in the resulting business that isn't coming for quite some time. So there's not a direct correlation. And that's the problem. There's a delay in leads you have in your system to not getting enough new leads, right? And you won't know where they're not coming from. And that's the real problem with that. So delisting something, I mean, you just lost all the residual value to something that you had created. And
it's such a shame. And stuff like this happen when companies get acquired, businesses get acquired, podcasts get acquired. I mean, if people don't know what they're doing and they think they know better than you.
So as Rosie says, she's got increase in keywords. I'm so glad to hear that, Rosie, because no women left behind is an important message. So yeah, I love that. So yeah, we're saying this to you because look, you're putting in the effort. You're already putting in the work.
Holy mackerel, Rosie, look at that climb. Yeah. I mean, percentage wise, it's gone from really almost nothing in August and September to about 8x increase in keyword rankings. And I can't see the traffic in what I'm looking at right now. I'll have to look to Google Analytics later, but yeah, this is a great measurement. And it is, again, something you're seeing over a period of 5-6 months, which will continue to grow. I'm very excited to see that.
Yay. I'm so glad. So glad to see that success, Rosie. You deserve it. You've worked really hard for it, and your content is the important part that's driving that. Like, there is no way that Tom and I and the way our company is set up can do the job that we do if your content's not good to begin with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, when we work with the right content, it makes our job easy. And I mean, we're just a system, a process. we're not magic, right? And we,
and actually what you're seeing on the website
exactly,
is even
Scott.
delayed. On the website, it's delayed a little bit because I just looked at the latest it takes our website, it's delayed a week or two. It's even more, I guess I see, that's what it is. Our website's reporting the US keyword rankings only, not the worldwide rankings. Okay, I
So you
was
have
looking
even
at the
more
worldwide
worldwide.
rankings, so there's even more worldwide.
How do I assess good content? That's a great question, Anne. And the reality is that to me, good content is highly targeted in your niche, in what the message is that you're trying to get across, and it's specifically curated and focused on the audience that can benefit from it the most. Tom and I very clearly here don't talk to wannabe podcasters. Like, you don't hear that from us here. We talk to those of you who started a show already. You already know how hard it is. You already know that you got to put the work in. You already know these things. We don't have to sell you on podcasting. You have already seen some benefit that you think is of value to you. Now we want to dial that in.
Comment.
I know. Yeah. You're laughing over that. I know. Exactly.
It says crap content, crap results. He used a little more colorful word, but we're live broadcasting. Hey,
yeah, exactly.
Can I share, Rosie, are you okay if I share a couple of your keyword rankings? Because I'm looking at some of the biggest ones. So
everyone, I have to jump off.
Cool stuff. I
gotta jump off.
I can go for another 10 or 15 minutes.
Okay, I cannot. I've got to jump off. I have another call. But I want to say thank you all. Your results, these great results are make me so proud.
Yeah, I geek out on this stuff too. I want to talk about it a little more.
I'm so proud of all the successes we've been seeing.
Rosie's a great example because you know what?
Bye, everyone.
Right. You can go. Thanks, Tracy. So Rosie, I'm looking at your keywords. Looking at your US keywords, they've more than 10x'd since August. And so that you had 3 in August and in the US 41 now. So that's more than 10x increase. But look at these keywords. People would kill for these keywords rankings. Career coaching for women, Rosie, number 2 position. That means the very first page of Google search, you're the second organic result for that. That's a fantastic keyword phrase. Obviously, No Woman Left Behind, you should be number 1 on the first position, and you are. Career coach for women, number 3. That's on the first page of Google search and organic content. And then there's some long tail ones, career coach for women looking for purpose. That's kind of an obscure long tail keyword, but still number 3. So you've gone your website from ranking on very little in August to doing all of this content you've created, publishing. What have you got now? You've published around 40 episodes, it looks like. And you're starting to see the needle significantly move, and it will continue to pay off. You'll continue to build on that. So I am thrilled to see those page 1 rankings. I mean, there's lots of great rankings beyond just the page 1 ones, but boy, those page 1 ones are fantastic. I'm going to take a look and ask to take a look at hers. I can do that quick. Let's see, the podcast numbers are looking decent, but I'm looking at the keywords. I'm going to look at a different. Isn't that interesting? Your keyword rankings have been increasing. It definitely. How many episodes have we published here? Okay, looks like about 18, 19, no, 20 episodes published. So you're tracking further behind, Rosie, just because of the volume of content. You've got, yes, some increase in keyword rankings, but it's not as I'm not seeing as many page 1 yet. Let's see, hold on, I want to look at another website. I see, there you are. I wanted to get your domain name, and I'm going to look at another tool I have, because you can't always see everything from what I'm looking at. Okay, so interesting. Site traffic appears to be up significantly, and keyword rankings are up worldwide 100, whereas back in August was like 45. So that's good. We're seeing increase, but you keep publishing consistently and you're going to continue to see better results. And I'm seeing not a lot of page one rankings yet, but again, this has to build. Google has to see consistency. You've got, some page one rankings, but it's mostly your name, and you should rank for your name. You've got, page 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, a lot of other rankings. So you're ranking on a lot of good keywords, especially actually for some other people, which is interesting. Some of your guests, we often see that. Executive coaching South Africa, interesting term to rank on. Harvard Square Leaders Excellence. Authentic leader development, that's a nice one. Developing yourself as a leader, that's another interesting one. But you're about on page 4 or 5 for some of those. My point is, as you continue to publish more content, and the sooner you can publish more content, the better, the faster these things will increase. Some of these same keyword phrases, you will rank higher and higher on different pages of Google search. So it's not always the number of keyword rankings, because honestly, right now you rank on the same number of keyword phrases that Rosie Zelinskas does. The difference is she's ranking on page 1 for a lot of things that you're not yet, but that will change. Again, the total volume of content lifts everything up, and you will start going from page 5, 6 to page 4, 3, and 2, and 1, but you just have to be consistent in continuing publishing more content. Oh, sorry about the lighting, guys. All of a sudden we've had rain and cloud cover and very diffuse lighting, and all of a sudden there's parting, and I have a window in front of me, and there's parting of the clouds, and the sun came out, and I don't have my shade pulled over. So anyway, that's why I'm getting some funky, undesirable reflections here. So look, you have access to these keyword rankings and on Podetize platform. That's one of the wonderful, unique things about our platform is we have an integration with SEMrush, and the keyword rankings are there for you. You just have to, at the top of the analytics page, click the websites button. You get your top 20 keyword rankings. And if you want to hit the export button, you download a spreadsheet of your top 100. And that's all a part of what you're already paying for on Podetize. So check that, monitor. This is something you want to monitor month over month, like once a month. These keyword rankings don't shift majorly. So go to the client portal, the analytics tab on the very left side. When you get to the analytics, go to the top of that page. There's a button that says website versus podcast. You look at the website analytics, there's a list of your top 20 keyword rankings, and you can export a spreadsheet of the top 100 and monitor that over time. But again, the path to it is what you're all doing. Record more content, publish more content, and it's a long game. You're going to continue to achieve better results, which are going to lead to more traffic to your website, which will lead to more people listening to your podcast. And whatever your goals are for all of that, it all begins. We're all looking for the same thing: being found by more of our ideal listeners, prospects, customers, and just keep going, keep recording, keep publishing. All right. So let's see. Last call for any questions since we are over time. I know we've lost a couple people who are live. They probably had meetings like Tracy did. And Cody, anything on social? Any further questions or anything?
No further questions I'm seeing right now.
Great. Last call for any questions here. But hey, I'm excited for 2023. I know that, some people are sort of doom and gloom about the economy. You know what? Those of us here that have podcasts that are taking action to, have our voices heard, to market and grow what we're doing, we're the ones that are going to succeed. Others will fail. So I'm not worried about the economy. And hopefully you're not as well. It's all about who's going to be found and the value you provide them. And I guess last little thing I'll share. So we've been finding some communities of potential customers, new markets for us in some social media groups, and we're creating affiliate opportunities for those group leaders, incentivizing them to help us raise awareness for what we do with those groups. That's another thing that I don't have results on yet, but I'm very hopeful for that. And in coming months, we'll be able to report success there. And another thing for you all to consider, and I'm sure some of you I know are probably already doing that. I know Scott Carson has some of his own groups out there, but I'm tapping into other groups that have some of my ideal market in there and bringing incentivizing those groups to help pin some of our posts to the top of their group and have calls to action. And anyway, we got lots of new market experimentation going on here. So we'll be happy to share that as we have results as we go forward. All right, I guess I'll wrap it there. Hey, Scott, thank you. I want to catch up with you on the phone soon. I've been meaning to do that for weeks. But it's been a little crazy around here. Tracy had COVID. I don't know if any of you didn't realize that. Last week, she was like down and out. Christmas present. Tracy test positive Christmas morning. It was not fun. So we've had, a rough 10 days, but she's finally better. And fortunately, no one else in the household got it. So we're all okay. All right, everyone. Hope your year is getting off to a great start. Enjoy. We'll see you next week. Thanks, everyone. Bye.